Welcome to Merle's Pearls of Business Wisdom, where I, Merle, am Singer, the relationship miracle worker, talk about all things relationship that impact the workplace. And today I have a special treat. I am interviewing Chad Eaves, a communication expert with a master's degree in communication, an MBA, and an engineering degree. I had no idea. Plus, he served in the Navy. That's enough for a lifetime. And he has all the wisdom that he's gotten from that to share as a communication expert. And we are going to share that he has a what do you call these things that you write?
An article.
He wrote an article.
I co-wrote the article, but yes.
He co-wrote the article, and it's so good that he co-wrote the article because the article is about informal learning networks. Informal learning networks would be networks that you networks is more than one person, so it took more than one person to write about networks. That kind of seems appropriate. So first of all, hello Chad, how are you?
Doing great, Merle. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah. um how did you decide to write this article? What caused it to happen?
Well, it was actually interesting because it's kind of an article on what happened and leading up to writing this article. And that the two women that I wrote this article with, Jessie Ellisberg and Tara Katzbeck, we met at the national conference for the Association for Talent Development. And we were in an online group, and Jessie started a smaller group to kind of go over the videos, courses and the presentations from the conference. And so we joined that, and then over time, the three of us were what was left in the group. And we were looking for something to do to kind of keep us connected. And we decided that we would write an article. And after kicking around some different topics, informal learning networks was a topic we landed on. In a sense, networking, in the science of networking, is part of the work that I do. And then also from the learning perspective, that's their area of specialty. They're both professional learning professionals. They do designing courses and running formal learning and training teams at their organizations. And so it was a nice mixture of the two different topics, and that we had met each other through an informal learning network, through the conference, and through our time together and discussions and such. This was a topic that we landed on, was basically to write about something that we learned. And this article was published in the magazine for the Association for Talent Development. So it was about all of our experience about going to the conference, meeting each other, and learning together in an unstructured and informal way, and then writing about it.
So what's the value of an informal learning network? What, just why would anybody do it? And really, but I mean, to put it in simple words, you get together somehow, either at work, at a conference, somewhere, and you take a couple, any number, tend to be probably smaller than 10, but I suppose it doesn't. Anyway, and a number of people choose to do something together, to have some common goal that they want to accomplish together.
Yeah, and that's really the key part of the definition is that it's not an official network. It is usually not officially organized within an organization. It's kind of what makes it informal. And it is, bound together by people that have a common interest. And they usually start there's three ways that they usually start: either a common interest or activity, a common experience or event that people went to, or it could be on a common platform that maybe they connect with one another, like on LinkedIn or WhatsApp or something like that. And so what the advantage is, and where it really brings opportunity to everybody involved, is it's a way to connect with people inside your organization and also between organizations, that brings people together with that common interest. And you can learn and do stuff typically in a faster way than what you can do in a more formal and organized team.
Okay.
And there's a number of different benefits from it. You can move faster because you don't have to deal with the red tape of being in an organization. You can also explore and meet people that can bring something to the table that you didn't know. Out people like, hey, you know what? I worked with this person. She's really good. It can kind of serve as a way to, try out working together. And also, there can be people in ways that you normally would not consider. Someone that's from outside your specialty but has an interest in what you're working on. And that's something that can be really powerful, is when you bring people from different disciplines and backgrounds, that you can get results that you would not have gotten if you had just stayed like inside that formal team structure. So if you were working on, let's say, a technical issue and you were on an engineering team, but then you meet someone who maybe they're an artist of some type that has an interest in what you're doing, well, they can bring that different perspective in that informal learning network, and you can come up with a solution you never would have thought of before.
Also, being on Zoom, it can be from anywhere in the world, for goodness sake.
Well, we're a good example of this. We met through the LA Speakers Academy for the National Speakers Association, and we've stayed in touch ever since. So, in essence, we met through that learning experience in the Speakers Academy out there. And you're in LA, I'm in Chicago,
Right.
but we're still able to stay in touch, and we have done since then.
Yes.
And we continue to learn. We continue to learn together. We're not made to come here. We're not being paid to come here.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the challenges with the learning network too, is it doesn't have that structure, which will attract a lot of people. But also, if it's not kept engaging and meeting people's needs, people leave.
Yes.
And so it's a balancing act that the membership has to walk, in that you don't have a formal structure, like you don't have a president of the network or whatever it might be, but it needs to have enough to offer people. And so they're very dynamic. They'll grow, they'll shrink, people will join and leave. And that's part of the nature of an informal learning network.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is true in a business, by the way. It just not with as much ease.
True. Well, and one of the interesting things with an informal learning network is how businesses respond to them. Some businesses can be very supportive of them. They want their people to get out and meet people and find new solutions. Others do not want people interacting with people outside their company, and it could be a policy decision. It could be that the information they're dealing with is proprietary, or very sensitive in some nature, that they really can't share it with other people, perhaps even a regulatory issue. And those aren't the environments that we're really talking about. We're talking about where people can freely associate and work together, on a task or a project.
Couldn't those people within the business, within the company do it? They just couldn't engage people from outside the company.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have like team A, team B, team C that usually work only within their own teams, they can cross-pollinate and work with each other in a less formal structure. Absolutely.
What I find fascinating is that I was raised that you learned in school. And so you went to grammar school, high school, and got a bachelor's, a master's, and if you wanted to push it, you get a PhD, and that was learning.
Hmm.
But that's only the beginning of learning. What you learn outside of the classroom, what you take from the classroom and learn informally. I mean, kids play. That's a learning environment that we don't honor in the way that we should, because I think um, if when we can see, when we can get together with people informally, there you don't have to be right or wrong, so you don't have to worry about making mistakes, so you can offer new ideas or create new approaches, and and get some feedback
Hmm.
without worrying about am I looking like a fool or not. And I think it's hilarious that when I read your article, and they talked about ILNs, and what the heck is an ILN? An informal learning network. You actually have a name for this. Uh, but I think with the more that we can use informal learning networks, as the more that we can allow ourselves to and I just did a podcast on this, um, to ask for help, to have people not tutor us. What do you call it? Be oh my God,
Mentor,
pardon me.
a mentor.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Duh. To ask for mentorship, to offer it to other people. If you if you want to get something, it's good to get into the groove of giving it as well. And this informal learning networks is just another version of all of that.
Yeah, in a way, they're extensions of play. And, one of the terms we used in the article was prototyping. Okay, we're using a fancy scientific term for trying something out. And if it didn't work, oops, learn and try again.
Right,
Kind of like on the playground, someone's building a sand castle and it falls over. Okay, how did I do it wrong?
right,
I need to add more water, to my
right,
bucket or something
right.
like that, and try it again. And that's one of the benefits on learning, the informal learning networks can have, is that there's a lower risk.
Yes,
You're not going to, have a negative impact to your job necessarily
yes,
or something like that. And if anything, you can get an advantage,
yes,
by doing something like that. And, it's that's one of the differences between, organizations and leaders that support informal learning networks. Sometimes people or, organization will be concerned that you might leave through a connection, but they don't see where there could be the benefit of you can get a solution, fix something faster that didn't cost any money,
yes,
from the company. There, you
yes,
didn't have to budget out for that. You solved it through a network. And
yes,
a lot of times people will create their relationships, and someone maybe they worked with at some point, they knew from school, and they met somewhere, and they hit a problem. It's like, oh, but you know what? This person does this as well. And, pick up the phone, shoot the email, whatever it might be, and be like, hey, I'm stuck here. I know when I was in the IT world doing software programming, that was something we did a lot, because you'd work on something and then something strange happened, or you just didn't know that well, and you tap into your network. Like, how did you solve, or when you came up against this problem, any idea? And it's, you don't want to overuse a network, to where you're always tapping
right.
into it. But when you're stuck, or awesome things can happen from it, they can really yield lots of different benefits. And, one of the other things that we mentioned here is like there's two different types of networks at the basic level. You have cohesive networks and bridging networks. And a cohesive network is typically smaller, but you have a much higher level of trust already. Those people typically know each other very well. A bridging network might go across teams or across organizations to where that trust level may not be as high to start with, but you get the benefit of bringing more people in with more diversity of backgrounds and experiences and stuff like that that you might not have had another way. And especially with Zoom and everything now, you can talk to people around the world.
I know.
And that's something that 15 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe, but definitely 15, 20 years ago, that technology was just evolving and it was expensive. Everybody couldn't just pay $15 a month for Zoom. And this advance in the software and the price becoming more affordable has really helped to make this more accessible. That's one of the things that also I think is common between relationship skills and communication skills, and that they are very related, but they're also a skill that a lot of people don't make an investment in learning. We go to school, like you were describing earlier, we go through our school, maybe we go to college or whatever. Very rarely is there a class in relationships or communications. You might touch on it in psychology or some other, class a little bit. But as far as actually practicing the skills and developing, we don't, that's not part of the curriculum.
We don't even
And,
honor it as a skill. That
mhm.
we don't even acknowledge it.
And then when we get into the workplace, the number one thing that makes things work and makes things fail are people.
Yes. Yes.
I come out of the technology world. 50% of projects that fail are generally attributed to communication issues, of some type.
Yeah.
But how do we, in the worlds that we work in with people, people can really benefit from understanding there's more to learn, and it creates an advantage for them that they might not have had otherwise.
Plus, you're meeting people from various places and whatever. The more people you meet, the more people you know, the more people who know you,
Mm-hmm.
the bit better your advantage. Because just like you said, you're having an issue with this little thing. I know somebody that knows about that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a tremendous advantage. And it's also, of course, the more people you know, uh, the more people you can learn about where you want to go after you finish with this job.
Yeah, there's definitely that that personal, that professional development angle to it as far as our futures and stuff like that. And in a kind of odd way, I think that's one thing with the pandemic is people were craving connection in different ways, to where when all these conferences and everything went online, people were more open to connecting
Yeah.
and to talking and getting into groups.
Yeah.
Now, they still went through their natural phases of, development, and a lot of them reduced in size, to people that were really committed, to being in there. That was a good fit for them. But I think that was, at least from what I've observed, that was something that did increase or change in that manner during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Whereas when people were going to the conferences in person, you were getting that need, that connection, that human need satisfied there. And how much did that carry on after? I think it was a different demand that we had between the two different situations.
Right. You needed different things.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. It's interesting. Um, so is there any one thing that you have done differently as a result of having written this article?
Writing is a very interesting experience. I would encourage everybody to do some kind of writing. And for me, it had been something that was on my bucket list for a while, and I hadn't really done it for years. The thing that helped me was writing it with other people. Is I became accountable to Jesse and Tara, and we were accountable to each other, and also we could help each other. If someone was, had something going on at work or in their personal lives and they couldn't finish something, the other person could, take up the slack. And so it was really a good experience, and the benefits of working, with other people for this type of event. Plus, when you write about something, if you have to think about it in a little different way, because we all hold our opinions and biases on different topics, and they live in our heads. We're people. It's what happens. But then when we start writing it and we have to proof it, and that it's going to go to somebody else,
Right.
whether it's your co-writers or eventually an editor for the magazine, you have to kind of look at it in a different way. It can't just be, I think this for this sake. It has to have that thought process, reasoned out. And it can challenge the way that you think about something. And so I think that's something that most of us can benefit from. Again, unfortunately, writing like this is a skill that many people don't engage in after they've graduated, unless they absolutely have to write. But it does, going through that thought process, going through the publishing process. It took us about 9 months to write and get this article published. It was probably about 5 to 6 months of us writing it back and forth. And we would meet twice a month. And then it was probably about 3 months going back and forth with the magazine editors. And it was an interesting process.
So my question then is, how do three people write one article?
Google Docs.
No, well, no.
We split it up.
Yeah, you must have you must have organized it and said, well, let's break it into these topics and everybody pick a topic.
Yeah, so we knew what the overall topic was, and so then we broke it into subtopics.
Right.
And like we had the beginning, we had the conclusion, and we had the middle. We had a word count that we had to be within, which I believe was 1,800 words.
Oh, really?
So we had to come in, with that word count, because I think our first draft was like 2,400 words or something like that.
Wow.
So we definitely had to reduce the number of words. And so that gave us one boundary, and then we broken down into the subtopics and we divided the work out.
Yeah.
And then we would take turns editing it. So as we got it written and it started becoming more of an article, one person would take a look at it, another person would take a look at it. And that was it was an interesting collaborative effort. And so much of it comes down to the people that's involved. We were all committed to doing this and writing a good article, whereas we probably each of us have been in a situation, whether it was in school or work, where you're in a team, a group of 4 or 5 people or whatever, and you got that slacker who's like not doing anything. There was only the 3 of us, but we worked in a really good mix as far as supporting each other, getting the work done, and then working with the editors as far as getting it ready for final publication.
So we are a part of an informal learning network. Do you have other informal learning networks that you are a part of now?
A lot, actually. And there's people that I met through various ways that I connect with usually every other week, whether it's our group with like I said earlier, UNLA, me in Chicago, and our other members in Atlanta through the National Speakers Association. There's another individual that I talk with about every other week in New York City that I met through a networking group. And a couple others. Part of the challenge is with any networking is doing it in the way that's you're gonna get something out of it without just networking to network. because you could find yourself networking all the time, and then they're not getting actual work done. And all networks are not created equal, and not all networks do not necessarily meet the needs of all people. um, you know
And
there's
each
some people.
network is different, meets a different need for you.
Mhm.
Of the ones you belong to, each does something different for you.
Yeah. And with some groups, like informal networking groups, people can drop off and come on. Usually, you have a core, group of people, but when people aren't getting something out of it, they're going to drop off, and that's just part of the nature. And it's that growth and contraction that can happen. And sometimes learning, like any network, in our informal learning network, sometimes their course runs,
Right.
and they're over. And it doesn't
Right.
mean anybody was bad,
No.
or anything like that. It's just maybe the problem solved,
Right.
or too many people involved in it. They started families, or they moved to new towns, or different things that can happen
Stuff
that
changes.
could influence the
Right.
the health of the network.
Right. Right. So if you, my final question is, we're talking about the value of informal learning networks. What could you tell the audience is would be a good approach for someone to be open to or create or find an informal learning network for them, even how to figure out about what.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think part of it goes back to the three ways you start or enter an informal learning network. It's around that common cause or interest, the common event, or the common platform. So one way would be to look at LinkedIn. If there's a group that you're interested in that has a certain purpose or mission,
Oh,
that
interesting.
might be a way to do it. If you find yourself, a lot of times, they'll start up organically. Trying to force them can be kind of problematic. But if you find people that you're talking with, on a certain problem or a hobby, or whatever it might be, those are the people that will be interested in getting together. I think going to events is a really strong way of doing it, because you have people there that have that common interest. So when we went to the Association for Talent Development conference, everybody there was interested in learning in some fashion. So whenever you attend an association or a conference, whatever it might be, at the club level, chapter level, national level, you've got a group of people there that are interested in doing that same thing. And some people will be more interested in extending that practice and learning more. And that's how you can start your informal learning network. If you're a leader at an organization, there can be real benefits to it, and consider supporting it, versus some organizations will try to block them. And explore how they can help you out, and be a benefit to the business. But it's really finding birds of a feather. And it's kind of like when you find somebody and you click and you're talking about that topic with passion. That's the start of your informal
Right.
learning network.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's very interesting. I think what I've overall learned is that uh, I'm going to cough, that you should always have a glass of water. What I've learned is that just about everything you do and everywhere you go, you should have a purpose, and that the purpose should be uh, learning things, meeting people who have a similar interest or things that you can learn. Uh, be willing to be open to people that are higher level speakers at the at the event could be a good person to talk to and offer suggestions and get suggestions and just create. I think what you're saying is talk to enough people so that you get the sense of who you make a connection with and then go from there. Is that
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's and not everybody's going to want to do it. And, you know, don't take that personally. You know, it's just they may have other priorities in their life, or maybe the personalities just don't click. And for people that are interested in that article, if they go to my website at www.chadeaves.com, that's EAVES.com, there's a link for written works, and they can download it from there for free. So it's a PDF that they can download.
yes. And and it's worth it.
Yeah, it's like
And you
five or
don't have
six
to print
pages.
it out.
Yeah, it's not a monster read. It's about 5 or 6 pages or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's there for anybody who wants to download it.
And should would you like people to get in touch with you for anything else? Like,
Sure. Anyone you have questions or whatever, or interested in exploring some of the other communications work that we do, chadeaves.com, my website, also on LinkedIn. Uh, Reach out there, send me an invite, send me a message, and love to connect and talk with you.
I
And
mentioned that you you
yep,
met Chad on Merle's Pearls
Merle's
of Business
Pearls.
Wisdom podcast.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, mention the context so I know how we virtually
Yeah,
met one another.
right,
And
exactly.
yep, yeah, definitely. And you know, it's been great being here with you this afternoon, Merle. So thank you very much for having me on as a guest.
My pleasure. And thank all of you listening to Merle's Pearls of Business Wisdom with me, your host, Merle M. Singer, the Relationship Miracle Worker. You can find this episode and all past episodes at relationshipmiracleworker.com/podcast. It's a really good page. As well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and all your other favorite podcast platforms. Bye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.